Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. Today I have 16 Glitch in the Matrix and paranormal stories for you. My favorite one is indeed the first story. Very Mist vibes. Let's get to it. Case file number 3184, written by Price vs. Oh My God Bears. Eldritch fog over New Mexico. Me and the lads were taking shifts, driving back from the most budget snowboard trip ever. 3 a.m., slapping Tiger Balm on all our sacks just to stay awake. all the fun stuff. Well, around 5 a.m., it's pitch black, and we are deep in the middle of a long straight patch of nowhere highway in New Mexico. I was at the wheel, and instantaneously, I couldn't see above the car. A solid, perfectly flat-bottomed fog cloud descended to just maybe 2 feet above the car and held firm in place. Nothing on the ground at all. It lasted this way for about 5 to 10 minutes. It was bizarre beyond words, but not that scary, at least at first. Then, we came up on a long bridge. As we were driving across the bridge, these thick tentacles of fog started spiraling up and over from underneath the bridge onto the paved road. I swear they were reaching towards the car. It was fucking terrifying, as at least 6 of these 3-foot in diameter fingers of fog appeared and slapped down, either just before or right onto the car. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I would have called it the biggest exaggeration. Whatever they were sucked onto the car for half a minute, unable to see beyond the visibility of a few feet due to the fog. I floored the car over the bridge, and we never looked back. It took us weeks before we were willing to talk about it, and even though 4 of us saw whatever that was we saw, we still have trouble believing it ourselves. Yeah, so harkening back again to one of my favorite movies, The Mist, just such an interesting vibe. To experience it in actual reality is... I couldn't even imagine it. I mean, you didn't see weird spider monsters with acid silk shooting out of them, so that's a plus. But a tentacle monster, kind of combining The Mist with Pirates of the Caribbean and the Kraken. I think I'm good. Your car was basically the Black Pearl. Thankfully not dragged down to Davy Jones' locker, but hey, if you had stayed there, who the hell knows? What are they experimenting with? Is this some military test and they're actually opening portals to different dimensions or different realities, different universes? And they're just pouring over very distant universes where creatures there are entirely different from what we know. I mean, if you go back and even on Earth, there's some animals and species that would seem alien to us in a way that would almost be like fantasy or sci-fi. So yeah, I could see that. A different universe far enough away where things are so different that what comes out of it is like an eldritch monster. Damn. Case file number 3185, written by Consistent Roof 4685, Flicker and Fall. So, the other night, my husband and I woke up at 3 a.m. and started to hear this really weird sound, like something was slowly falling in our room. So we shined a flashlight in the general direction, and we couldn't find or see what it was. Then slowly, we started to see a weird neon light flashing on the wall. Then it would just disappear. After a few moments of this, our vision started pulsating, going in and out. I started freaking out, asking my husband if he noticed it too, which he did. After a few minutes of the pulsating, everything started spinning. Over in the corner of the wall, where we had just pointed the flashlight and looked, it started making a vortex, or portal, looking like a thing that would not stop. The only time we couldn't see it was if we had some type of light source in the bedroom, so we had to sleep that night with a nightlight on. We've never experienced anything like that before, and haven't seen it again since. Case file number 3186, written by Crowning Blunder, Security Breach in Reality. I work with some pretty sensitive documents. At the end of the day, the documents are locked away in a safe in our office. It's an industrial-looking safe, heavy, only openable with a very unusually shaped key. There are only 2 keys, One is kept by my immediate supervisor, and one by her boss. He keeps it locked away in his own office's safe. One day, we locked up the documents and left for the day. We used our key. I, my boss, and another colleague witnessed this. The next day, we needed the documents, and so we needed to open the safe. However, we couldn't find the key. This was really serious, because a missing key is a major security risk. Like, it's a serious breach and needs to be investigated. We really needed to get the documents though, so we went to my boss's boss and got his key. He took the keys and went with us to our safe. When we opened the safe, we took out the documents, along with the missing key, which was somehow inside the safe. The safe we locked with those same keys. We can't explain it. The only way that could happen is if we locked the safe, somehow dropped the keys were picked up by the big boss, and then he used his key to open our safe, deposit those keys for some reason, and then lock the safe and somehow forget to tell us that it all occurred. We asked. He said he didn't. He doesn't seem to be lying, and we're not sure why he would lie. Case file number 3187, written by KN4S, The Pedal That Kept Time. Pretty sure my parents' apartment is, or at least was, haunted. I had several super eerie experiences when I lived there. My sister and mom too. I once sat, gaming in my room, when in the corner of my eye I saw this shadow watching me. I quickly turned around and it instantly vanished. Several occasions when I've walked towards the door of my room, and just as I'm about to open it, it opens by itself. I have woken up from the feeling of someone yanking my arm, and when I woke up, I realized my bedlight was on and pointing point blank right at my face. I woke up another time in the middle of the night and realized my pillows and blanket were neatly stacked on the floor, and I was sleeping just on the plain mattress. I once heard my mom walk up to the bathroom as I was brushing my teeth, creaky floor, and she has a distinct walking pace, thinking she'd forgotten something, so I turned around to ask about it, but nobody was there and she was still sleeping. My sister once took a nap midday when she came home from school early and woke up to hear all the keyboards in the apartment clicking at the same time, as if people were typing on them super loudly from every room. My mom was once watching a music show in the living room. We had an exercise bike there at the time, and she saw the pedal swinging in tune with the music. The apartment is over 100 years old, so I guess it has some history. Never felt unsafe there in general, although it is kinda uncomfortable being there alone. Most of the weird crap kinda stopped happening around 4 or 5 years ago. I've also only had sleep paralysis once in my life, and it was there. Was facing a wall, so I didn't see anything, only felt an oppressive force of fear. Not too much to add on this one, it's just a spirit story, pretty conventional. I just like that you say you didn't feel threatened or scared being there. Maybe uncomfortable a bit because it's unusual, but yeah, most spirits are just echoes of people that were there, and most people are decent, or decent enough, right? They're not malicious sadists like Joffrey in Game of Thrones or something like that. They're just people. So yeah, they're not out to get you. They're just ripples of energy, still coagulated towards the impression of whoever was there before that left it. Like the ripple in a pond, it'll fade away eventually. But, yeah, generally nothing to be scared of. Case file number 3188, written by Anonymous. The House in the Glen. There's a lot of 1930s Depression-era abandoned farmsteads still standing to this day in my hometown. When I was a teen, every year from mid-September to late October, Halloween, spooky, my friends and I would take flashlights and go around to these abandoned homes thinking we would see or hear something, a light, an orb, a voice, some footsteps upstairs or in the staircase. Well, this one home we always found particularly daunting. No one knew its story. No relatives of the family remained in the community. They just upped and left this whole farm one day when times were tough. It's also incredibly secluded. It's not visible from any roads and is essentially hidden in the middle of this thickly treed glen, surrounded with thickets and spruce and willows. It was only accessible on this washed-out, muddied-up road that would bury anything less than a Jeep or a decent 4x4. The nearest farm is 5 miles away in any direction. Our first time ever exploring it, all three of us saw 2 balls of light dart from what would have been the kitchen to the master bedroom. We froze in fear and raced outside. After collecting our breath and deciding that we all did in fact see the same thing, we gathered up our courage and tiptoed back inside the front door, Mystery Inc. style. Well, we made it just inside the front hall, when from behind, from the direction we entered, a gravelly yet hissing, low voice growled, "Hey." Zoom out. 3 scrambled, panicked teenagers sprinted up to my pickup and ripped out of there. I don't think we even touched the front steps, just shot clear out. We never ever went back to that house. To this day, we don't even talk about it. Case file number 3189, written by Salt Musician 8262. Blinded before Denver. A few years ago, I was driving home to Denver from my sister's house 2 hours away. I had to work at 6 a.m. and left my sister's house at 10 p.m., way later than I meant to leave, so I should have gotten home around midnight. I got my 2 kids in the car and started driving north on I-25 to Denver, a drive I'd done a bunch of times, and currently still drive. It takes about 30 minutes to get to the Colorado Springs from Pueblo, and I looked down a quick second to check the time, which said exactly 10:30 p.m., and looked up to see a blinding light, a white-yellow color in my rearview mirror, and squinted my eyes because I couldn't see. And the next thing I knew, I took a right turn and was in front of my place in Denver. I don't remember driving past Colorado Springs or the rest of the way home. I was shaking and scared and looked at my cell phone, and it said it was 10:30 p.m.? So did my car radio. My daughter was like, "Mommy, how are we home already?" "That was fast," she said. I called my sister, freaking out, and asked what time it was and when I left, and she was like, "Seriously? You left my house 30 minutes ago." And it was now 10:33 p.m. She was like, "Quit messing with me. There's no way you made a 2-hour drive in 30 minutes. I'm still so confused about this glitch, and my gas tank was still full, but it should have been almost empty. I try not to drive late on I-25 anymore. What's crazy is that it's happened a few more times since, and I can't figure this out. Anyone else drive on I-25 in Colorado, and has this happened to you? Alright, so in this case, yeah, aliens 100%, right? What's striking to me is that you keep driving on this road, and it's happened to you multiple times. I guess if you don't feel it, like the experience itself would be jarring, because you seem to not lose time but just be ported ahead. Like aliens will experiment on you, maybe they can pause time in fact, and then they just move you ahead towards your destination. And you have confirmation of this because of the gas tank not being empty, so it's not like you drove while time was paused but you were still using gas. No, your car itself was transported as well. It could even be combined with space-time portals. Maybe aliens are responsible for those, or at least in part, and that could be part of it. But the lights you're witnessing, yeah, I think that does point towards alien abduction, you know. Make sure to check your body for any markings, scars, implants, anything like that, even if very small, could point towards it. Although, maybe you don't even want to know, honestly, and I don't blame you if that's the case. I don't know if I would want to. Never had any indication of being abducted, and if I did, something like this happened to me, well, I can tell you I wouldn't go under hypnosis. Case file number 3190, written by Dizzy114. The Cat's Secret Supplier. Y'all, I don't know if I'm crazy, if my partner is messing with me, or if it's just a glitch in the Matrix. This is the most random thing ever. So I bought a bag of cat food in August. Usually they last a month or so. I just bought a medium-sized bag. A month ago, I noticed it's getting low, maybe a couple cups left, and I told my boyfriend we need to get more food soon. The next day, the bags were half full again. About 10 to 15 cups of food, if I had to guess. I don't know what I thought. Maybe I'd seen it wrong. Then 2 weeks ago, it's getting low again, and I said to my partner, "It's low again." And lo and behold, the next day it's got more food again. Instead of a few days, it had a couple weeks worth, and the bag's heavier than the night before. I was wondering if maybe he, my partner, was refilling it? maybe with cheaper food. I asked him and he said no. I don't know why he would ever lie, and I looked in the garbage. There's no empty cat food bags in there. We live in a 1-bedroom apartment, so there's nowhere he could hide it. Last night, the bag is empty. There's crumbs and a handful of food. I tell him we need to go tomorrow to get more food. I wake up and there's a week or 2 worth of food in it again. He said he saw the crumbs in the food bowl too, and he doesn't know what the fuck is happening either. It was so empty I couldn't scoop. I had to use my hand. And I literally remember there just being crumbs. Now there's a week or 2 of food left again. What the fuck? Yeah, okay, so this is a constant source of DOP, like a leak from one universe to a different one. A sense where food is being stolen accidentally. Not stolen, but just it's like a bucket that's leaking water. Just, in this case, instead of being physical matter, it's leaking through the universe. And in fact, if this is so consistent, you could probably even install a camera in there and see it happening. Imagine actually having video evidence of DOP. That'd be incredible. Or your partner is indeed just pranking you. But, where's the reveal? Come on. Get that payoff. What are you doing, bro? Case file number 3191, written by Aria Chang 24, The Loyal Spirit. My friend and I saw a ghost dog. We were meeting up at the house of a friend's girlfriend. This was a corner house and we parked on the side. We weren't necessarily paying much attention because we were talking, but we noticed and acknowledged 3 dogs ahead sticking over the backyard looking at us. We go inside and after some time, the girlfriend says, "You guys want to meet the dogs?" So we do. She lets one in and we pet it and stuff. And she talks about them. And I respond, "Hey, so where's the 3rd dog? Because so far we only see 2. And she only mentioned the 2 dogs, a golden retriever and this big husky." She responds that there's only 2 dogs, with a confused look. And we tell her that we saw on the side 3 dogs' heads sticking out, looking at us. And we described the color and stuff to her. And she was very concerned and said to us that she had a 3rd dog, but it died some months ago. So very awkwardly, we kind of played it off like we were mistaken, but later on we talk about it again, and we both did see 3 dogs. Because the thing is, it would be one thing if I myself was mistaken, because I didn't pay much attention, but the fact that my friend also saw it just doubles down on it. We left after some time, and we saw as we were getting into the car, the backyard and 2 dog heads looking at us. But like there was no other way to mistake it, we definitely saw 3 before. Case file number 3192, written by Plastic Interesting 46. When every day gets weird. So, yesterday, me and my daughter gave a ride to a young woman because her groceries were heavy and I could hear her ask for help to charge her phone so she could call a friend. I am a woman, running on 50, out with my teenage daughter. Of course I offered her a ride. It was not far and her bags were really heavy. So we gave her a ride, no details exchanged, no names, no nothing. I then gave her the extra charging cable I had in my car because we have multiple ones at home. Anyways, today I was getting my kid from town. She had been shopping with a friend. I looked through our cable drawer to bring another one to the car because my battery was low. However, when I got to my car, there was an exactly similar cable already plugged in as the one I gave away. Same design, same amount of wear and tear. This young woman does not know where I live. She doesn't know my name, and I do not know her name. My teenager also remembers very well that I gave the cable to this young woman. The car has been locked all the time. So yeah, the hell. Case file number 3193, written by Me Comet, Your Dinosaur. Velvet and Ghosts. This happened at least 10 years ago, and I only have told my wife and mom about it. I used to live in a very small city and took the bus to work every day. I lived on the outskirts of the city, so the bus was usually pretty empty. I get on one day and see about 5 people on it. Normally I don't pay attention to anyone, but today was different. Today, there was an older woman with gray hair wearing what looked like a purple velvet dress. Her shoes reminded me of ballet shoes, and she wore this big, wide-brimmed yellow hat. There was a pattern that I couldn't make out on the hat, but there was some purple on it too. The ride to the downtown terminal took about 30 minutes, where I'd catch my transfer to work. I'm sitting at the back of the bus, and she's somewhere in the middle. When we reached the terminal, I noticed she was getting off too. I exited through the back door and saw that she was still making her way toward the front. She was moving slowly, so I was sure I got off the bus before her. I needed to grab some cash, so I headed straight to the ATM. It's only about a 30-second walk from where the bus stops. The ATM is right beside the washrooms. As I approached, I swear in my life, the same woman walked out of the woman's washroom. Same dress, same shoes, same yellow hat with the purple pattern. There was no way she could have passed me without me seeing her. There's no way she could have gotten off the bus, gone inside, and come back out in that short a time. But there she was. That was the last time I ever saw her. I didn't see her inside the terminal or waiting outside for another bus. Case file number 3194, written by Random Cat 007. Whispers from the Woods. In high school, during summer, I'd be home alone while my parents were at work, and my older brother had moved out to college already, and I'd have to do chores and whatnot while they were gone. We had 2 dogs at the time, and one dog had the bad habit of leaving their property to go on adventures. They live in an extremely rural area, and the back of the house faces national forest. I was in the house at the time doing whatever, when I heard my mom's voice yell to me at what seemed from the other side of the house or from the patio. "Hey, go get the dogs!" And I even replied, "Okay," not even thinking about how I'm supposed to be home alone. So I go out the backyard, and sure enough, the dogs are freaking past our fence, making their way into the field and oak trees. So I go out and call them back. Go back in the house and go, "Oh my god, you were right, they were leaving." And then I waited and had no response. And I remembered, oh crap, no one's home though. So I go room to room and check the driveway for cars, no one. When my parents come home, I told them the story, and they're huge believers in ghosts, so they think it was the original owner, this older lady who passed away in the house, just from old age. It was the only time I had an experience like this, ever, and I've never felt weird or scared in the house. If anything, I felt like it was a positive experience, and whatever it was just trying to help. Another one, not a ghost, but just creepy. In college, I'd drive the 4 hours back to visit my parents. I'd take an old rural highway for like the last half of the drive. Lots of vineyards and ranches. It was super late at night, well past 9 or 10 p.m., so it was pitch black on the road. All of a sudden, this guy appears in my headlights, sitting on the side of the road. He looked kinda like a migrant worker or someone typical of the area. It startled me to see someone out in the middle of nowhere, just chilling. He didn't have anything with him either, no bags or anything to look like a hitchhiker. He just waved as I drove by, and then it was pitch black again. I looked ahead and in the rear view. I never passed any cars on the side of the road either. It was just so random and creepy out, cause dude was just sitting in the pitch black night on the side of a rural county road. Hope he got a ride. You know, like I said, most spirits just friendly, even helpful, and just going about their business, but hey, they see a potential issue, and they wanted to brace against it for you. Why not? I mean, if you were a ghost, you'd be friendly, wouldn't you? I mean, again, yeah, we all know I'd be a prankster, but I wouldn't be malicious, and if there's some actual problem, like dogs getting lost or hurt potentially by wild animals in the national forest, I'd want to help. Prevent that. Yeah. My eyes are juicy. 2 tails down. One evening, I was in my apartment, I live alone, talking to my sister on the phone. My cat, who had been lazing about on his cat tree all evening, suddenly sat up alert, staring hard at the corner of my living room. He wouldn't take his eyes off that one spot. It was like he was watching something, but there was nothing there. He got up and walked super slowly towards it, tail down, very unlike his usual behavior, never taking his eyes off this thing in the corner of the room. At this point, my other cat got up from his nap spot on the floor and also started watching this thing in the corner of my living room. They were both acting scared, walking super slowly with their tails down, never taking their eyes off the corner of my living room. At one point, My cat suddenly looks up and across the living room, down the hall, into my bedroom, and finally in my closet. Both cats now are just sitting outside my bedroom closet, not moving, staring very concernedly and scared at my closet. This goes on for hours. They do not move, just sit outside my closet staring, scared. It's way past my bedtime, but I can't sleep because I'm too scared and my cats are both just sitting outside my closet, not moving. Finally, I decide enough is enough and I get up to firmly shut the closet door. Both of my cats jump up and run out of the room. Me closing the closet door scared the crap out of them, even though they watched me get up and close it. Something scared them that night. In the 15 years I've had those cats, they've only behaved like that one time, never before or after. I suspect a ghost came to visit me that night. Case file number 3196, written by Kindred Secret. Ashes in the Corner. My dad, Dad's girlfriend, all referred to as stepmom because she's now my stepmom, my brother and I went up to the wooded area of my northern Pennsylvania, ironically near Lake Erie, to visit my grandmother. My great-grandmother had lived there for years and had oxygen and other things, and she just recently passed away a few weeks before we came to visit. There has been conflict on where my brother and I were sleeping, and ultimately we were placed in the room where our great-grandmother had died. My brother took her bed, and I took a cot that was beside the TV. It was a small room, and a bunch gave me red flags immediately. There were pictures that looked like eyes following you, one notably being my dad when he was back on deployment with a rifle. It was at the head of where my bed was. There was a stuffed animal that was put in the corner of the room by the door, full of ashes by the deceased loved ones. It only got worse from there, but you get the point. Later on, it was time to go to bed, and so I laid on the cot. I couldn't doze off, and I went onto my phone. I was scrolling through a social media platform, Instagram to be specific, while also texting a friend through that. It was about 11 p.m. I think, and I heard my brother move around. I look over and see him sit up. His eyes were shut, but I called his name, seeing if he was awake. He wasn't. I remember him raising his hand up, pointing at the open door. "Get out, get out," he kept repeating a few times before laying back down. Of course, I was panicking. I was only about 11, maybe 12. My brother was the same age as we are twins. I don't really remember, as this was a few years ago. Trying to wake him up was my instant reaction, and he didn't open his eyes at all. I finally eased up about 5 minutes later, but it happened again and again. I would say it was finally 12:30 before my grandmother walked into the kitchen for a glass of water. She saw me awake, and me being as panicked as I was, she asked why I was awake, and so I decided to come clean no matter how insane I sounded. Hell, it was unbelievable. She called me insane, verbatim. "You're insane. That wouldn't happen." Me being about 11 at the time, I was full of ignorance. I told her to wake him up then, and see if he remembered anything. Since I couldn't wake him, I didn't think she could. She walked over to him and placed her hand on his left cheek, and he stirred awake. My jaw dropped and she looked over at me with the "I told you so" look. Something about how she did it utterly terrified me. She hushed him back to sleep, and she scolded me, again calling me insane. She told me to go to sleep, but I refused to sleep in that room. She eventually moved me to the lower level of the house, the couch. She took my phone from me, and I had to coax it out of her in the morning. When we were leaving, I told everyone in the car what happened. At first they didn't believe me, laughing, but then my brother said he somewhat remembered being woken up in the middle of the night. And then it all clicked. He was the one experiencing this because he slept in the deceased grandmother's bed. Ever since then, I've believed that maybe, just maybe, the paranormal existed. But I could have just made it up. Maybe I was insane as my grandmother said. No idea. Guess I'll never have any answers. This story just rubs me the wrong way because of your grandmother's reaction. I get it, we react to weird situations differently, but to call an 11-year-old kid who's, clearly terrified, insane, I don't get that. That just seems wrong to me. I don't know. Case file number 3197, written by Magic Spa, The Fat Man and the Little Princess. I remember being 5 years old. Back then, I used to have bizarre dreams, very unusual dreams, the sort that would be more interesting to and make more sense to an adult than a kid. Like one time, when I was 5 years old, I dreamed I was a powerful general, in a cape, surveying the remnants of some battle. In the distance, silhouetted against the sunset, I could see figures of soldiers running out of a castle and falling off a cliff, while nearby a little goblin-like aide or assistant was waiting for orders. The goblin-like assistant looked a lot like Jacques Cousteau, by the way. Even now, more than 40 years later, I can't see a pic of Jacques Cousteau and not remember that little goblin being who was asking me what command I would next issue. Anyway, the day before I started primary school, yes, I really was that young, I had a dream where a big, fat, slightly ugly man with dark curly hair was on one knee in front of a beautiful little girl who was dressed like a princess. The room was dark, but looked like a room in a mansion or castle, and there was a large fireplace burning behind them. The fat man was begging the little girl for something and pleading, "Make haste," in a regional English accent. It sounded like, "Make haste," to my Scottish ears, while the little girl looked down at him silently, her lip curled in contempt or disgust. The thing is, the next day, on my first day of primary school, I actually saw that little girl. Her name turned out to be Fiona. I remember how bemused I was to meet someone in real life that I'd only seen in a dream before, and I tried to explain it to her, but given that we were young kids, the discussion didn't get very far. After trying to explain that I'd met her before, it never came up between us again. If I couldn't articulate it, she was never going to understand, and if I couldn't understand it myself, how could I expect her to? I sometimes think about those dreams and why I would have them back then, when they made no sense and did not contain elements I could relate to. At the time, I didn't even know what "make haste" even meant, but there I was, dreaming of someone saying it, using it correctly and in context to someone I hadn't yet met in real life. I think dreams can be a highway towards a higher dimensional realm of information, which is all reality is at the end of the day. If it is a simulation, then everything can be broken down into bytes of information. And so you have these dreams that may even just be replays of past lives, maybe not even your lives, maybe just lives of other people. The weird thing about our subconscious is it's not like a computer where it's replaying exactly the information fed in. It's interpreting that information and trying to feed it into your conscious mind in a way that you'll understand. And as a 5-year-old, I mean, that's a challenge in of itself, because even the ordinary and direct translation of that information wouldn't necessarily make sense to you. So maybe that's why there's goblins involved, or Jacques Cousteau as a goblin. But yeah, you have this information, and like knowing about a girl that's going to be in your class before you meet her. Well, she exists, it's in real time, it's just information separated by a few miles. Could definitely be fed into your brain somehow, without involving, weird time prediction or anything like that. Case file number 3198, written by Chaotic Goodness 789. A Childhood Returned. I was alone in our house, cleaning out our garage and looking through a tub of old stuff. I found a journal of mine from when I was little, around the same age as my daughter now. It was a very distinctive Babysitter's Club guided journal. I read a few pages, then took it upstairs to my daughter's room and set it on her bookshelf to read together later that night, because I thought she would get a kick out of it. I was very intentional about where I placed it, so that I would see it when we went to read that night. I then went back down to the garage to keep cleaning. I started going through the same tub, take out a few books, then find the same journal again? At first I thought it might be a duplicate, but I looked at the first few pages and it had the same drawings and journal responses. I went back upstairs to my daughter's bookshelf and it wasn't there anymore. I have no explanation. Case file number 3199, written by The HUD 18. Letters from the Other Side. I have two experiences. One's mine, and the other one is my mother's. They both happened just after my dad died. I'll start with mine. So, my dad died in December of 2011 of cancer. I was just about to turn 9. He had cancer on 2 separate occasions, one a few years before, but this second time, he was only ill for about 3 months. My family knew he wouldn't make it to my birthday, 20th, or Christmas. So we had an early birthday for me on the 2nd, which my brothers and I stayed home from school for, and Christmas on the 4th. I went back to school on the 5th. First thing in the morning, we had an assembly. I was sitting on the floor and suddenly felt as if I wasn't in the room. Everything I could hear sounded muffled. I looked towards the front and saw my father flash on the presentation for just a fraction of a second. And in that instant, I felt an ice-cold breeze wash over me. I looked around in the hall to see if anyone else saw it, and as I turned around to my right, I directed my attention to the exit to the playground. Stood in the doorway was my dad, with the light from outside beaming around him. As I blinked, he vanished. I turned around to my front again, and that very moment, a friend's mom who worked at the school walked in through the door, drove me home, where I found out my dad had just died about a half an hour before. The other story happened to my mom a couple months later. My mom worked at a school in the area, but had taken a lot of time off after dad passed, understandably. For a bit of context, my dad was terribly short-sighted and always talked about getting laser eye surgery, but never got around to sorting anything out. When my mom went back to work, she had a few bits of mail waiting for her in reception, mostly pointless administration stuff, but when opening one, despite being addressed to her on the envelope, the letter inside was to my dad. This was strange enough, as my dad was never affiliated with the school's address, as he and my mom were separated when she got the job. The letter inside read of a referral for laser eye surgery, following an appointment dated to December 6, 2011, the day after he died. I'm not sure if the second one is eerie or just sort of comforting, as my mom always took it as dad letting us know he was okay. Now time for the jokes of the day. Two whales walk into a bar. The bartender asks, "What can I get you?" The first whale says, "Wah, woo, woo, wah." The second whale says, "Shut up, Frank, you're drunk." I asked my mom if she can pick me up, because I don't like the sleepover. Then she said, "No, you're 47. Those are your kids and wife." It's a very long sleepover. Yeah, it's not going to end anytime soon. I can't believe I got fired from a dairy farm. They said I was a danger to myself and others. I am is the shortest sentence in the English language. I do is the longest sentence. Till death do us part. Alright, video up here. YouTube thinks you'll like it. Check it out. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. See you next time.